Hello, everybody. Good evening. Welcome to the webinar on Mastering Sales Execution by TAI Andhra Pradesh and TAI Academy. If you have seen in the last year or so, we've covered workshops on idea validation and jump starting your startup. So the next important aspect where where if you need your validation of your product, you need to be able to get your first client or first few clients, which is where the sales acumen and the sales part comes into picture. And as entrepreneurs, you need to be selling your idea to all the stakeholders, your employees, your family, your peers, and your customers. So sales is an important aspect in a startup, and not everyone will have the leverage of having some salesperson in their team. So you should be able to sell your idea. And uh, as an entrepreneur, if you are unable to sell your idea or product, automatically the credibility or the interest of the listener is lost. So we have Mr. Dinkar Suri with us. He, in fact, has connection with Andhra Pradesh. He has grown in Guntur, so he is well versed in Telugu too. So he would take us through the fundamentals of sales execution. Of course, 2 hour webinar wouldn't be sufficient to cover the vast area of sales, but he would take us through the fundamentals of sales execution. So over to you, sir.
Okay, thank you. Namaskaram Andarki. I will keep this in English only. So Anudeep, thank you for organizing this. Yes, I'm a Suri, but I'm from Andhra. So it gives me great pleasure to come back to the state from Mumbai virtual and talk to you guys. So I was born in Guntur. Actually, our village is called BB Gudam, Bahu Balendra Gudam near Vijayawada. Nobody is there. So we all have either Bangalore or Chennai or Mumbai. So I've grown up in Bombay, studied here, did my engineering here. First batch for SP Jain. So we're talking 83. So how many years is that? That's 37 years. Some of you may be younger than the age-wise, So there are a lot of experience I can share with you. I'm a member of TAI here for last couple of years. I've done several roles as CEOs at startups in my career, spanning 35 years. TAI, we started the TAI Academy last year to train entrepreneurs, and I will have a brief. I will show you what we did as an example, use case example on value proposition there, just to explain to you as part of this. So I work on very specific areas in sales. I work on sales and very specifically on sales execution and building efficient sales operations. So this is something that all you people here would be very, very interested to know, whether you are a mature company, I mean, at least 3-4 years or even 2 years plus in operation, whether you are struggling today to set up your operation or whether you are at an idea stage. The one thing that is going to be important for all of you is to how do you actually go out and execute the sales. So whatever promises you make have to be fulfilled. So I'm going to take you through my thoughts on this and the concept I have developed to make you understand, make this very simplified. Um, so it's not that you're going to be a doctorate in sales execution once you finish this, but yes, you will have a better understanding of what makes it work and what are the elements which you need to look back in your own company to do that. So I have a presentation. I'm going to take you through that for the flow. Sometime in the middle, we'll just stop and ask Anudeep to ask me the questions that you have. I guess you put it in your question section, I guess, right? So that's how it comes.
Yes, yes. So please drop any of your queries in the question section, and during the
Yeah,
break, we'll cover
yeah.
those.
Not
And
not
at
in
the
the chat.
end,
Not in the chat. The
yeah.
chat is so many things. Okay, so let me start with my presentation here. Okay. Anudeep, you can see it, right? All of you?
Yes, we can see your screen. Yes.
Okay, okay. Okay, so mastering sales execution. So I'm happy to be here with you guys. So my company is called Retail Market Movers. That's what my company does, and it basically very simple. I build sales productivity, and that's been my passion. I've been a CEO twice in my life, and I've run sales companies. I've done marketing and a lot of stuff. But what I realized ultimately, the plans had to be executed and to a degree of perfection to deliver results to stakeholders, investors, employees, customers, whatever. So this is the passion I have. I'm doing this across all the Thai chapters. Did it in Thai Mumbai. I did a masterclass. Chandigarh, I did a masterclass. Everywhere I go, people are very interested to understand how to do this. So anyway, thanks for this opportunity again. So this is what I'm an unconsultant, I call myself. So what's an unconsultant? An unconsultant is somebody who looks at the business and comes up with practical solutions to improve your productivity and implements that. So that's what I do all the time. So I work constantly with entrepreneurs, SMEs, MSMEs to kind of do this. So it's kind of ingrained in me. And what I'm going to tell you today is based on not only the Thai experience, my experience as CEO, my consultant experience, all of that. So an unconsultant is somebody who's going to be working not as a consultant who only gives advice, but also implements it. That's where the whole aspect of the execution comes. So those of you running businesses will have a secret wish, and those of you are very new in the business will have this wish sometime in your career, in your journey of entrepreneur. You will say, "I wish my sales team can be more productive and improve execution." Maybe you're already saying that. Okay, maybe you're already saying that, but in a nutshell, this secret wish doesn't disappear somewhere. It always is sitting with people, and you don't know how to solve that. You try various techniques. Some people try their own formula, some people fail, succeed. So what I've done is I've taken all my experience of so many years, put it into a bucket, and that is what I'm presenting to you here to solve this, to meet the secret wish that every owner will have. I wish my team could be more productive and improve the execution. So the first thing to understand, what is execution? Just very simply, execution is supposed to be act of doing or performing something in a task in a planned way. This is what the dictionary definition of execution is. So there are three components to that. The three-step process for executing anything, including sales. The first is there's a process. So whatever you want to achieve, you have a process to achieve that task. So you should know what the process is. How will you know? You have to ask somebody who has done the process. So let's take something like I want to write a book. So I have not written a book. I want to write now. So what will I do? I can just sit down and start writing, and it may turn out okay, may not be okay. The better way is ask an established business author, consultant, was how do you write a book? Then he will probably say, okay, you got to make a chapter synopsis, put your thoughts down chapter wise, look at it, come back to it. So there's a process. So understand that process. Then I would understand what is the standard or benchmark of that performance. To say that I have executed well, what should be the benchmark of performance? And that should not come from me. That should again come from outside as to what is the accepted benchmark of performance. And third is I have to start the process and keep measuring myself against that. So I should see whether the book is coming out okay or not, whether the quality is okay. So I would have a benchmark of a good business book in the market, which is a famous author, which has done well. See how they structured it. Then on that basis, I have to then okay say I have to do my topic on that basis and keep measuring it. Maybe show to somebody, ask somebody's opinion, and if I'm out of sync, I've got to control it and follow up on deviations and kind of do corrective action. So very quickly, so the first is formalize the process. So the question to ask is what is the gap, GAP? GAP is what is generally accepted process. If you don't ask this question, you can't execute well. If you say, oh, I know all the processes, I know I have, I just want to just understand how to do it. The first thing is you have to understand the real process, not the process you think the process is. Ask the expert. See, in the area of manufacturing, there is no confusion. If you're a new engineer on the shop floor and you go to work, you are given a process to or a machine to handle, you have to ask the question, How does the machine work? There is no other way to do it, right? But in sales, you can go and start the work without asking this question. And we'll come back to that in a minute. This is one of the hazards of the sales operation, sales department, inherent in the sales people. So first is ask what is the process, what is the generally accepted process to achieve the task. Second is what are the correct standards of performance, evaluate whether the task is over or not. So if the machine is there and I have to, he will show me, okay, this machine produced this kind of piece, maybe it stamped something, you pressed it, this how it looks. So when I make that, I have to compare it and see, okay, is it okay or not? Very simple. If it's a very low standard, it means achieved easily, may not be quality work. So it will correct the correct standard of performance. Third is measure performance to control and follow up on deviations. So if you can't measure, you can't control. And if you find something out of control, you have to take action. Otherwise, again, you're not executing well. So 3 points. What are the 3 points? Again, make the process, standards, measure performance to control and follow deviations. It's very simple for anything you want to do in life, including sales. So now let's come to sales execution. So when you say that the sales execution is bad, or you say, it is not doing well, or CEO says, okay, they could do better, what actually means? What he means is that essentially it does not deliver the desired result. Why is that? Looking at the previous example, there was no process, there was no, or if there's a process, it's not correct. There is no performance standard. So they have done something, but it's not as per what the standard is. Third is, it's not happened and nobody has measured anything and controlled. So it's been off track completely. So there's no process, no performance standards, and lack of measurement and control based on the execution principles. This is what poor sales execution means. So this is a problem in sales. And all that, when you say that your performance is okay, you're not executing, this is what is happening. So this is the first thing to understand. Now this is controlled well in other departments other than sales. You take accounting, it's very process driven. I mean, your salary check, if you're working somewhere, is not off your salary slip cannot be off by 10%. Never, because there's a process of putting your CTC and all the system, the ERP does everything, right? Manufacturing again, no. R&D, no. It's only in sales that we get to this point, and hence we have to really do some heavy lifting. So first understand that in sales you have to do some heavy lifting to do the ordinary work. So 70% of this problem, so there are three problems here: processes, performance, and measurement control. 70% because of lack of processes. If a process is put in place, even assuming you don't control it that well and not following up, even though you'll get something at least in the bargain. So the first is the process. Because there's no process, sales team, what they do, they chase the result. They want to do a target, or you as a founder chase a target without actually making a process, and hence there is no guarantee of success. Now all of the functions, as I said, finance, accounting, R&D, they all have processes. Then so why not sales? So for that, the question to ask is sales actually an art or a science? Is it natural, creative, God gifted, or is it process driven, methodic, predictable? Unless you tackle this basic question, you won't set a process. Because if you say it's art, you will say, okay, I can just do it. What is there? Today I'll do it, tomorrow I can do it, after some time I'll do it. It's a matka. But if it's a science, no. If everything I want to do, there's a process. Show me the process, we'll say. So your mind will work accordingly. Typically in sales, people always talk of the selling or sales being an art. So 95% of salespeople think that it's an art. The reality is actually it's a science. And those who treat it as a science get the result, because if it is a science, then there's a process. Because science is what? Is process driven, methodic, predictable, trainable. You can train somebody on that. So if it's a art, it's not possible, but it's a science, it is. See, you cannot do a sale, but you have to execute a process to achieve the sales goals. So usually when the result is not achieved, it is normally because the process has not been followed. Nobody will admit it, but this is the reality of sales. And this is why companies keep floundering, big companies, small companies, startups, entrepreneurs. So, there's a mixed batch. I know, listening to this, the audience here, I know there are people who have just started, people who are some of you, I think, are students, MBA students. Now, the thing about this is not taught in any MBA school. In fact, mastering sales execution as a module is not done anywhere, literally, in the world. You can check up. There are modules about how to sell, the keeping a right mind for selling. You can win and sell all of that. But sales execution like this, there's nobody doing. So please take this notes very carefully, because when the result is not obtained, it is because the process has not been followed. So what excuses come to me normally? Startups are saying, actually, sir, we're very busy getting things done. We don't have time for any process. We just want to we have no time. We are so busy with raising money, infrastructure problem, this problem, that problem. So there is no time for these so-called processes. And big businesses say that, we are chasing numbers, targets, huge targets. So we just want to go for the target. Nothing else should come in the way. And this is ironic, because if they follow the process, they'll get to exactly where they need. Following the process should be the result that the company would like to see from sales teams. That means every day when you say that sales team is going to make call on customers, whether inside sales on the field, you should tell them, okay, you have to call on 30 customers or whatever on the call. Follow the process which we'll talk about. The result, if not come today, will come tomorrow. But don't try to short circuit and try to get a sale, because that is not sustainable. But that assumes that is the process in the first place which has been agreed. So where is the process? That I'll talk in a minute. So following a sales process should be the result that the company like to see from the sales team. Then the result the company wants, which is superior sales achievement, right, would be a natural consequence of following the process. So you follow the process, the result will follow straight away. Just like in production, just like in accounting, same thing in sales, because it's a science. Here is ice cream. I take the example always. So when you have the ice cream in your hand, what are you trying to do? Finish it off in half a minute and say you finished the ice cream? No. You want to first lick the cream, savor the chocolate, crunch the biscuit, enjoy it, make it last for 5 minutes. So the whole process of eating the ice cream is the enjoyment. The enjoyment is not finishing the ice cream unless you're doing a kind of race or whatever. So the same way, in sales, the enjoyment in the process. Enjoy the process, the result will come automatically. Now, this is I'm talking, and I can say, you may say, okay, this guy can talk anything he wants. But then let's look at somebody very, very, somebody we all adore, somebody whose word we take and we wait for his words. And the gentleman is none other than our ex-captain, MS Dhoni. See what he says.
My only suggestion or advice would be, which I keep saying in all the interviews that I give, process is more important than the result. Result is a byproduct of the process. But in today's world, we are so much focused about the result that we get away from the process. So take care of the process, take care of all the small things, and eventually you'll get the desired result. We always keep complaining, oh, we should have gotten more and all of that, but it's actually the byproduct of what we have done. So if you prepare well, if we execute well, and if you're honest to ourselves, more often than not, we'll get the desired result. If there's a shortcoming, it's always a learn. It's all the best.
So there you are. Follow the process, he says. And batsmen like Virat Kohli, Sachin, when you look at them, they're doing the process. It's ingrained in them. The science, how to, coaching. When coaches work on players, they follow a science. So when the science gets ingrained, it looks like an art. So we say, oh, he's batting so easily. The deep science of training, which gets into that. So when it gets ingrained, so what we should be doing is following the processes such a way that it becomes automatic to you. It's second nature. Just like to prepare a P&L for the accounts guy, it is second nature. You check the sales figures, check the vouchers, expense. You'll say who's approved this voucher. There's a process. It's automatic in his mind. There's no checklist he has got. Same way we should do such a thing in sales that it gets ingrained. It looks like an art. And this is where some people say, oh, look how fast, how nicely he's selling. Another part of a sales is, we're not talking of just the selling part of talking and selling. There is a portion which, that portion is important. It's about 30% weightage, actually the sales pitch. But before the pitch and after the pitch, 70%, it is equally or more important. So the entire thing is becomes a art. So now I've enough talked about the processes. So who is going to give this process? Because if you go to the market outside, nobody gives you processes. If you're working in big companies, you have maybe a SOP manual. But if you're an entrepreneur, who's going to give it to you? Suppose you want to accept the fact, let's say, looking at my speech and what I'm saying, you say, okay, it's a science. So give me the process. So I have the answer for you. So what I've done is I looked at accounting guys. Accounting and the finance people are great at this. They made everything process oriented. Even a BCom guy coming into your company today, a fresh guy, can prepare a statement of accounts, and there is absolutely no confusion of how you're going to do it. You're going to check the sales, going to check the invoices, check the customer. It's all pakka, and it's called generally accepted accounting principles. GAAP. GAAP is a universal norm. So what I've done is I've called mine GASP, generally accepted sales principles, to give it to give the world a standard which is as important as the GASP, generally accepted sales principles. So it's a sales toolkit. Today we will talk as an overview on it to make you understand what it means. But basically it's a sales toolkit which can be implemented anywhere. So what is it based on? It's not based, I haven't invented it. So basically, I have collated this based on the experience and the best practices covering all aspects of sales management, not just the sales call or how to sell, all aspects before and after. It builds an execution-oriented culture. So this is what the MDs want. When they say that we want to make sure that they're executing well, when you're saying that, is there a process, is there a standard, is there measurement, all this GASP takes care. If you do GASP, you're taking care of everything and much more beyond that. So what does GASP do? It improves productivity, improves execution, improves customer reach, penetration, and because it does all these three, automatically the volume and value go up. Remember, we are not chasing the volume and value. We are chasing productivity, execution, customer reach, penetration. Hence, the result is volume value. The process gives the result. It's valid for all sectors. Some people say, oh, I'm in IT or in AI, ML, IT services. Doesn't matter. There are only two kind of processes, B2C and B2B. B2B and services are same. I just make it separated, but essentially B2C, B2B. So we have got it covered in everywhere. Once you implement GASP and you follow the processes there, your sales goal will follow you. This is guaranteed. So there are 30 key sales processes, essentially 30. And whether mature or startups makes no difference. For a mature venture, the entire 30 processes apply immediately. For a startup, some of them, like who are struggling with the product market fit, they will say some of them are not immediately applicable. True. But trust me, in the journey that you have to make it a large enterprise, all these would be definitely applicable to you. All of them. So there are basically 4 buckets. So Anudeep, are there any questions so far?
Yes, Suri, but I think that we have one question, but that should be covered at the end is what I feel.
Okay.
So the question is about how will we convince others to buy post-lockdown? So once the sales process is done, we'll then set it in the context of.
Yeah. Okay, see, listen, good point, this COVID and lockdown also is all happening. We're all worried about it, and it's going to take a while to get out of it. And we will do what is required. We'll talk about it. Just want to make a simple point. People talk of the GDP of India crashing to growth 1%, 0.5%, whatever the percent is. Remember one thing: if we are at 1%, Europe is at -3, US at -4. We as India will always be ahead of the pack. There's nothing to stop us from still becoming by 2030 the largest consumer market in the world and the third largest GDP by nominal value. This is a fact, because relatively speaking, we are always going to be ahead of the rest of the world. So let's look at the positive side when you come to the end of this. So moving on with this, so there are 4 buckets. Customer management. So customer is the most important, and that is the customer basically drives the business. Customer. Some of you will have partners, distributors, sales partners. So sales partner management, sales team management, which is the third bucket, and 4 operations. This is a comprehensive look at the sales. When you say sales, as I mean, not just selling, all these 4 you have to see. So these are, if any of them is not managed properly, you can't execute well. So we will take each of them and touch on each of them. What I will also do for you is, we are not going to go into details of the 30 processes today, but I will give you a glimpse of one of the processes to show how it flows. So you know how it looks like. So let's, each of these 4 buckets, each of them have an objective. So the objective of customer management is to build a business by acquiring and managing customers efficiently and profitably with solutions that have a unique, differentiated value proposition. This is the most important word in the entire enterprise you'll ever get for the rest of the lifetime. Unique, differentiated value proposition. A value proposition is something that the product has got. In the initial part, when this word was made, it was meant to signify, by definition, the value proposition meant what is different and better than competition. This is how it was, the English language, how they called value proposition. But over the years, it has got corrupted to say that what is in my product is a value proposition. So I have to put differentiated value proposition to make it very clear, and also put unique. So UDVP, unique, differentiated value proposition. So there is absolutely no confusion. It has to be something which is a benefit, which is unique from competition. So you have to build the business with that kind of outlook. Customer management takes care of that. So some definitions which I get into: customer is somebody who actually gives you the PO, but a user is a person who uses it. It's very important to understand in B2B that the CTO, CFO is releasing the PO, but the person using the service could be a CRM, for example, could be a sales department, could be a supply chain. So they are the people who will make or break your final relationship internally. And we'll talk about this when you come to that point. That's why I made a separate point on this. Normally people don't make this. I'm making the customer. See, in a consumer market, very simple. There is the distributor and there's a consumer. So by definition, you're talking about the consumer all the time. But in B2B, a lot of people, when I see, they talk only the customer and they talk about the buyer. They talk of the user also. So there are 6 processes here. So very quickly, and this is the order in which is supposed to be taken. So if you're building a company, for example, from scratch today, to make, maybe, I don't know, maybe suppose I want to make this phone, just as an example, I'm to make a iPhone here. I have to first start with my value proposition as to what is my product and how is it going to be different from competition. Starting with that. Next, I will think, what is the pricing I have to set for it? Then I have to understand, oh, where are my customers? Because this, again, the customer coverage and the value linked. So what is the sales funnel? How do I acquire customers? Then I have to understand, okay, now how do I go and talk to customers? Sales call part, which I talked about earlier. And if you're having a sales call, how to make it measure productivity? So the leading and lagging indicators. So a lagging indicator is the total sale number. It's an indicator, but it's a lagging because by the time it gets to you, you may have a day lag, 1 week lag, month lag, whatever. A leading indicator is something which is happening on the ground. It's like when you take a blood report and you get your WC count, your platelet count. That's a leading indicator. Okay, it indicates on the spot actually what's happening. So there are a lot of norms which are lagging indicators. So we have to look at leading indicators. And the last is admin part, which a lot of people miss out initially on collections and settling the accounts, etc. So there are 6 processes, and each process there is a way in which we have to go into the details of the process. So I will just take you to a flavor of that. So each process, for example, value proposition process, pricing process, there are 6 parts to it. One is the process objective. Then there are some questions that you have to just ask yourself before you get into the process, just to health check questions. Then actually the process itself, process check details, The process toolkit. How do you do the process? A good way to understand the process is how the process gets violated. So there are some top process violations which I'll put in and a few tips. So if you apply this on the gap accounting principles, let's say the objective of the process is to create a profit and loss account. So that's the objective of this of a process they have. So the question they will ask is, okay, what has been the history of the P&L earlier? What has been has it been transparent? Has everything been done? What are the record of this company earlier? That's a question to ask before you do the process. And the process, you'll say, okay, show me the sales figures, show me the invoices. How do you know the invoice is correct? Is there a sales return? Where is the collection? Blah blah. All that you'll check. And the toolkit would be invoices, purchase invoices, sales invoices, vouchers, all of that. There'll be process violations. People have accounted book sales which are not happened, all of that, and tips. So everywhere, on the other function, it goes through like this only. So I've tried to capture that to see whether we can put our mind like this and do it on a sales. Answer is yes. Companies which are doing well are following this process for each of the processes. So let's look at an example. So value proposition. So first of all, we said the first is the process objective. So what is the objective of this? Something like this: to develop a sustained, unique, differentiated value proposition for a product's solution versus competition that will enable early consumer adoption and build a long-term loyalty for the brand. So this is a value proposition. COVID, no COVID, this is what your brand is going to stand for, right? This is objective. So the process has to deliver on this objective. So the questions that you will be able to ask yourself is, actually, do we have a UVP now? And how did the UVP come about? Has it come about because I thought it's a UVP, or based on some factual data? Is it similar? Is it actually unique to you, or is it similar to competition? These are the kind of questions that go in your mind before you start doing the process. So now the actual process before you come, there are two things to clarify in this. So what is the feature and what is the benefit? Feature is something that you built into the product, technical specs, what goes into the product. Benefit is whatever that advantage the consumer or user gets because of this feature. What does it do to him or to her? This is what is called a unique value proposition, not yet differentiated, but unique value proposition. So you write down all the features, and each feature has a benefit. Write all the benefits. Okay, so that is the UVP. For example, umbrella you can take. It's got cloth, it's got wood. That's the features. Benefit is protects you from sunshine and sun and the rain. The classic one that Steve Jobs had, the iPod, old one, of storing the music. So either they could have said storage for 1 GB of MP3s, but no, they said 1,000 songs in your pocket. This was the benefit, unique value proposition. So this is how it changes. This is on the left side is the feature, and the right is the benefit. So basically the UVP has to be differentiated from competition, otherwise it's of no use. So build a differentiated UVP from the start. So this is a very, very basic stuff, guys. If you're starting with a product today, if you want to buy an entrepreneur, build a product or a service or a solution with a difference. Otherwise, you are going to get stuck somewhere. It just won't make any headway. Now, for example, the health sector opening up because of all the people are conscious about the health and stuff like that. So there'll be a rush of people using technology, building apps for health checking this. Building an app is not very difficult. I mean, there's a process of science to it. It'll get done. But how are they going to be different from each other? So if you're doing something, anything, any field, any sector, anywhere, product, service, think how you can differentiate from the start. Because that is something that's going to be unique to you. And that is where you spend time. If you do get that part right, then the rest of the journey becomes very simple. So for that, you're going to profile your target customer. Who's the target customer? Where they're located? What is very important? What they're worried about right now? What do they need right now? Because ultimately, the question that every VC, every funding will ask you is, what is the problem your product is solving? This is what it is. And if you're solving X problem, is it solving it better than Y product? Differentiated. So this is what you're asked. Now, basically, this is something called design thinking. design thinking, and I would recommend that Thai AP, we do a separate session on that with some. I'm not expert on this. I have some insights into this. There are people who do workshops on this. It's very useful. Basically,
Sure.
design thinking focuses on the user, find the pain points, you define a solution, and you make a prototype and go to them. See, a lot of times I put a Steve Jobs example. A lot of people will tell you that Steve Jobs never believed in market research, because there was a famous statement he made, said if I ask consumer what they want, they're stupid, they don't know. It was made, that statement taken out of context. What he said was, if you're designing a completely new category and of service, don't ask the consumer, prepare a prototype, take it to them, and then ask them what they feel about it, and then you iterate. That is what he said. He never said don't do any iteration. In fact, he was the master dada of design thinking, because he knew the inside so much. So he used to make the product and then take it to the customer. That's what he did. So design thinking is very important, and we will see how can we no we can take a session for that. So some expert for Thai AP. So essentially what it means, what does your consumer user need? Very simple. But sometimes we forget to ask the question. We design something thinking in our mind. Not a problem. Design in your mind, make a prototype, but go and talk to the user. So is your current proposition, value proposition, result of working with user, or because of idea you want to bring to the market? If it is latter, no problem. You're perfectly valid to do that, but do iterate and take the feedback before you do a proper launch. So how the process is that you have to prepare a value proposition statement. It looks like this. It is for which target customer who has specific needs. We as a company will provide the solution that gives specific benefits versus the competitor who provide X solution. Our company provides better approach that offers a better service. So this is how the value proposition is written, and this has to be written down for each and every different product category you are working on. But before this, you have to be very clear what is the features benefits. You see, I told you that I did my MBA in 83. And for all the MBA students out there, when we did our MBAs in those days, and it was not internet age, our professor in marketing had a very simple funda. He would say, okay, you want to make this phone? Now, please take a sheet of paper. There were no Excel sheet those days. Take a sheet of paper, write down on the left-hand side all the features, like this is the aluminum case, this is the camera, this is the screen, whatever, all the features. Again, each feature on the right side, write down what benefit it is giving. Simple. And that was the first thing we made to write before looking at anything else. Today, I don't see anybody doing that at all. But I did it when I launched the Thai Academy. I'll show you what I did. So I recommend very clearly, I suggest, please have a sheet with you which says features and benefits. Before, that is the starting point. Then from that, you have to do also for competitors. So do for your product, do for competitors, two other competitors. Find out the DUVP, and that you put into a statement like this. For example, this is a case study. This is what Neo Home Test Dahi. This I was the CEO of this company in 2012 to 14 in Gurgaon. This was a PE funded company, and we started from scratch. So we were making curd, dahi, and Delhi is a big market. How do you sell curd? Curd is a commodity. So we had a plant which used to make condensed milk. Normally, curd you find in the market, dahi, is basically all the companies they add milk powder to it to make it stable. We did not. We were fortunate. We had a condensed milk plant, hence we could make thick milk and make the curd from that without adding any powder, like you make at home. So you don't add any powder, right? Okay. Hello. Yes. Sorry. I'm sorry about that. So essentially, we had to understand how to sell the product to the consumer. So what happened is that our feature was that there was no powder added. That's the feature. We could have gone with that to the market, but we said no. We will go the benefit. Benefit is it tastes like homemade dahi, because when you taste it, the taste was such that it did not have any synthetic taste because there's no powder to it. So while the no powder added was definitely a feature. The benefit was home taste dahi, which is what we communicated, and people accepted that. So for that product, this is how the value proposition statement looked like. So this is how we created the value proposition statement. Okay, and how it reads is like this: for the married woman in age group so and so, SCG living in Delhi NCR region, who needs to supplement dahi made at home with dahi brought from outside. So Neo Dahi offers best alternative, identified price with 100% natural taste. So all of this was the template we used to basically launch the product. So this is a little bit of marketing here, but it's very important to understand how it works. So the entire process of value proposition comes to an end with this, making the value proposition state, writing it down and locking it. And then there are other examples of, of a company I did some work for. They were doing some refrigeration, eutectic refrigeration without any the eutectic chilling unit was sitting on top of the truck. It did not take any power from the engine because it was frozen, and they were saving fuel. We changed it from fuel saving to the benefit was the temperature guarantee. The temperature integrity inside of the container, because it did not work on the normal air conditioning system, was very big. So you're selling the solution. But let's come more interesting one. The Thai Academy which you run in Mumbai. So what was the USP process we followed to create that? Basically, if you look at the definition of entrepreneurship that Thai gives us, and which you people are actually, you're all entrepreneurs, it is the capacity and willingness to develop, organize, and manage a business to with any of the risks. So you have the capacity and willingness to manage a business with the risks involved. So the moment capacity willingness drops, the entrepreneur is actually dead. And at Thai, our job is to keep you that C&W at a very high level by training you, by showing you the processes so that you don't falter anywhere. This is what it is. So essentially, it's a such art and science mix, entrepreneurship. Because art is okay, you want to chase the dream and you have the internal urge. The science is the processes for fulfilling. Hence the Thai AP, every Thai chapter does great work. And the Thai Academy was brought in to give more focused work on that. So the mission of Thai was to foster entrepreneurship. Thai Academy deal with entrepreneurship. So whatever DUP we have, it has to be communicated in 3 to 5 words. My company is Retail Market Movers. What do? I build sales productivity. 3 words. Thai Academy delivers entrepreneurship. Thai fostering entrepreneurship. So all successful things which you remember have this thing. You need to come to a DUP. If you do all that, what process you follow now, what I just detailed, you'll come to this kind of thing where you're able to communicate that in 2, 3, 4, 5 words. So it is possible every time. So in the example of the process, so we understood a lot about why we wish to do certain things. So in the process, actual process check, how is it done? Profile a target customer. For getting a proper value proposition, first what you do, profile a target customer, list all the features of your product solution, check if the features evolved out of your own idea or as an analysis of pain points of customers. Against each feature, write down what it means as a benefit to your user. Evaluate if you have to go back to the user to validate the relevance of the benefit again. This is part of the process. Competition check, do the same thing for your competition. Check the benefits of your competitor versus yours. The points are different, that is your DUVP. And the last point is it a vitamin or antibiotic? See, a vitamin is something that, it's nice to have. So the customer may or may not take it. Like, for example, a SaaS CRM model. You can manage without it, small companies, and but it's good if he buys it. An antibiotic is something that he can't live without. The company can't live without. So if you have a solution with antibiotic, they must take it. If we have something for the payroll, for example, it's more likely that it's required than something for the sale. They can still manage on some Excel sheets or whatever. So when you're designing this, when you're looking at where to play the game, one of the important points is you understand how for you as a founder, all the benefits are very important. But as a user, so when you go back to the user, you understand the degree at which he or she may say they want it, but what is the relevance, you'll understand that. What it gives you is the process is the same. You'll get to know that if it's a vitamin, it's a little more harder to sell than antibiotic. That's what it means. Finally, write down your value proposition statement as the final sealing of DUP. So DUP is sealed, then actually you write down the thing like this. So this proposition is when you're sealing the differentiated unique value proposition. So what this value proposition process guides you through step by step is to create the final statement, value proposition statement, which means that you've sealed your value proposition process. And you can now go to the next step in the customer management bucket. So there's a process step. So here is the thing, you write down your feature, benefit, literally it's like a textbook, write it down. Then what all you need to making the process work, to complete the process. The toolkit is require the features benefit of your product and solution, require the features benefits of your competitors' products, at least two of them. You require a DUP, from that you require value proposition statement. So there are 4 things you require to complete this process and to certify that it is a value proposition that you can live with. What are the violations? 1 is not writing on the benefits of your product. 2 is not writing on the benefits of the competitor's product. 3rd is not writing down the value proposition statement. These are the top process violations. So in this example, what I'm trying to tell you is what all steps we follow to complete the process. And the tip I give at the end is, if you don't have a USP, DUP, then you're putting a lot of pressure on execution. So when you're building your idea, think how can I be different? And start with the implementation you have based on the value proposition process. You've done some research. Start with that, pivot it, because understanding customer is a lifelong journey. So then we make you do exercise in this process. Create an Excel sheet, write down your process, upload it to Classroom review. This one happening. So essentially, each of these processes I outlined, if you go back to the first sheet, yeah. So there are 6 processes here. The value proposition process to complete that, I've taken to a host of slides. Similarly, for each of these processes, there is a complete set you need to go through to arrive at the right standard for that process, on pricing, on customer coverage, on sales call, all of this. So now what we do is, we will not touch on each of the details because we can't do that in 2 hours. But what I'll tell you, what are the top process violations. Okay, so violations, yes. So here it is. Sales pitfalls, I call them, because this is a violation. Essentially, there is a value proposition which says that founder says I am the best, I know everything, don't ask me anything more because I know the customer. And this is where it flops, because then you start looking at not the benefits but the features which you are built in, and you start loving your product. So there is a statement at the bottom which says, if customer is king, then the user is God, because user is the person who's going to use it. If the supply chain guy doesn't like a CRM, he's going to complain to the CTO or CIO, CFO, and that person that's going to come back to you and say, look, boss, I don't think we are in the game any longer, because I'm going to stop you and get somebody else. So you need to connect with the users from day one. So this is what it means. The value proposition has to make sense to those people so we talk to them beforehand. And we talked about the other pitfalls, vitamin, antibiotic. Okay, and B2C, a lot of the times I find that the packaging, which I meant, which is the most visible thing, people talk of the features and not the benefits, which is not correct, which is what I told you in the dahi. I didn't say no powder added. I said, ghar jaisa dahi, home taste dahi. And B2B, basically you end up selling the product and not the solution, because you're not looking at the user. So if you don't have this, it's fine. So on pricing, some of the pitfalls are making either too high, too low pricing. Cost is a fact. Whatever the cost structure is a fact, but the pricing is a policy. So if you want to sell below cost, you're going to understand what it means and whether you have the runway to do it. The price sometimes is too low to take care of any sales partners in the future who come in. And for SaaS models, always the battle between giving free product and transitioning to paid. So you look at the industry norms, what's happening there. And rather than discount your price to the market leader, always try to provide more value for the same price as a overall hint when building the product. On customer coverage, if you are looking at a market which are big players, question of where to play. So you never take anybody head on, any big competitor, because they can come back and squash you really. Or after having started the operation, the pitfall could be that you're underestimating competition. You take customer for granted, or you could be victim of dirty tricks. When you're in the business and you're entrepreneur, you have come into this entrepreneur's journey of your own free will. So you got to be prepared for everything, and you got to be very alert. Customers can get bad mouth. Customer can get taken away. You have to be very alert. There's a lot of confusion in customer acquisition on lead versus prospect versus opportunities. So let me just clarify that lead is just a raw list of names. Nobody has done any research, just the list of names you get. Prospect is when you start talking to the leads and you think that, okay, this person or this company can take my product or service. This is what a prospect is. An opportunity is when that prospect says, yes, I agree with you. I want to take your product. Give me a price quotation, or sign an NDA, whatever. So the prospect is when opportunity is a prospect with a value attached to it. So unless there's a value attached, that is not opportunity. So sometimes you call leads. Many companies call leads as opportunities. They have a list of names. All of them opportunities. No, you have to go through a funnel. There's also the TAM, the overall market versus serviceable market versus share of market, total addressable market, service addressable market, and share of market, SOM. So SOM essentially is your SAM is the target market, and the SOM is what you are going to take from the target market in your first 1, 2, 3 years. So you have to build brick by brick, and you got to understand the word of mouth plays a very important role. Referrals, loyalty, all these play a very important role, and people don't give enough credence to that initially, and hence also they don't execute well. The other pitfall would be on the sales call. The sales call is actually, I put 30% weightage because it's a key part. And as I mentioned earlier, some people only focus on this when they say sales. It's important, 30%. And not having a script, not getting trained enough on this. Even have a very good value proposition, you're not able to communicate to the customer. So one other thing I recommend again for TiE AP, which I've been talking Anudeep also, is that sales training programs, on handling objections or negotiation skills, simple ones, because you're selling all the time to investors, to customers. These are very important, and this is something that you can get trained. It's a science, and people.
Yes.
People are not.
In fact, we have those plans in pipeline. So we are planning the design thinking and the other aspects too.
Very good, very good. That is required, and these are the things which are going to make a difference for you guys. Because it's all a science, and TiE is a entity where they can deliver all of this. The best people will come to TiE, and they will come, and they will come because it's TiE. TiE is a very prestigious institution. People will want to get associated with. So we will get those people, and we will make sure that you cover the. Because this is where it falls. Basically, it fails a lot of times here, but there are other areas I'm telling you where beyond this it fails, but this is also very important. Other things on execution pitfalls, the customer management would be not having the correct productivity norms. So if you're in a B2B business, there are 80 indicators you have to measure. I'm not going to get into that today, but there are 18 indicators which to measure to know the health of the business, and there are about 6 to 7 for the B2C. If you don't measure this, you're not doing. If you're doing only sales, only top line sales, you're not talking about the real health of the organization. And again, you execute badly there. And the other thing is for small companies, you don't have CRM is a state of mind. So you need to have an Excel sheet with you or a notebook. When I go to companies, small companies who don't have CRM, I make notes on my book. Keep your important data with you in the notebook. Write it down, keep it with you. That itself is a measure of your mind putting your pen to the paper and getting focused on the result. And don't wait for the business to increase to say, I'll put in the norms. Do it from day one. And the last but not the least is in admin, a lot of startups do selling but not collecting. So collection is very important. And you need to focus on that by getting the right systems in place. And this is where any accounts person can help you to put simple systems in place, ensure that you're tracking your receivables, also paying your suppliers if you're buying a few stuff, and making sure it's done. So these are the norms. So every sales productivity norm, sales admin, there's a process for that, and that is what the GASP is going to be getting into. So this is on customer management. So Anudeep, any question I could take now?
Yes. So I'll.
Yeah.
So
Please
the
tell me.
questions that we have is. So this question is repeated twice. How do you compete with a established brand, and as a startup, how do you convince the client about your USP?
Okay. So first and foremost, it's very simple. So what did I do in Delhi when I went to the Gurgaon factory? So Mother Dairy, there were Amul, there were Danone, a lot of big companies. I understood the competitor's product first of all. So my product design was based on the user and the consumer. The same principle which I talked about, you have to follow. Where is the pain point today of your customer? So unless so the first part is to make sure you have a right value proposition and a differentiated unique value proposition. Now please go back to the drawing board with what I've just said and reevaluate whether actually you have that and whether the customer is actually going to see that. Then comes the question of communication to the person, where there is a challenge with everybody. But if you have a strong proposition and if you have a strong USP, in the way I have described it, as a differentiated, unique value proposition, then 70% of the job is done. Okay. After that, then you have to communicate based on, you got to, you got to understand. You can't go and sell the product still. Okay, that's how you have the solution. You got to ask the customer. First of all, there's something called a spin technique, which we'll talk, which comes in the training. What is the customer situation today? What is the problem they are facing? Because if you have gone to them, I asked in the first part, I said, who's the target customer? You should go to the right people to sell your solution, first of all. If you go to the wrong people, they will not accept it. So a lot of the processes outlined before are to be followed. Assuming that you've done all of that and you're sitting from the right customer with have a strong DUP, you've got to understand what is his problem. Let him state in his own words. And you tell him that, okay, if you don't solve this problem, what is the implication? Then he will say, whatever. Then you talk about solution. Now, this is a training technique. Okay, but I'm giving you a hint. You can go to the YouTube and check on Spin, SPIN. It's done by a gentleman called Neil Rashett, 30 years back. So GASP is inspired by that. So in the sense that Spin made a science of selling and the process of detailing, SPIN. What I can do for Anudeep, I can send you that video, which is very good, which is explaining video about 10 minutes. You can pass it around. But so GASP is basically saying the same thing. So Spin did not invent this process. It was there. What it basically means is you talk to your customer. Now, if you've done all the work of talking to user before and all, then this becomes a cakewalk. So this is my suggestion to the gentleman or person who asked me the question. Okay, next question.
The next question is on pricing. How is price defined for a product, and what are the things that should be taken into consideration while setting a price for a product? And a product which is scalable product and which is niche product, different.
Okay, so basically you have to look at, again, goes back. I'm sorry, I have to go back to my first like a old record. What is the DUVP? How has it been arrived at versus competition? Do you have a real benefit? Okay, then what is the price of competition? What is your cost structure? Yeah, and what price you want to price it compared to the competition, which reflects your DUVP correctly. Because if you're strong, if you've got a strong DUVP, no point discounting on the price. So the process will take care of all of that. And I think, Anudhi, what increasingly what comes out is that we probably need to do a detailed kind of masterclass kind of thing to actually cover a lot of these processes in detail, which happens normally.
Yeah, in fact, I too felt the same. So while you are on this, I actually sent out a poll to all the attendees to
Okay.
see their interest. So about 85% responded that they would want a
Yes.
masterclass, a detailed workshop
Yeah,
on
so
this.
we will do that. You please we'll keep your eyes open. We'll cover all of that. There's a process there, and if you see the process, you understand very clearly how what is to be done. Okay, next one.
Sure, I'll coordinate with you and
Sure.
maybe
Sure.
with the participants, and we'll plan a
Sure,
masterclass too.
Okay. Any other question?
So the next question is market survey is market survey essential before going for the sales and proper analysis? That's
Absolutely. I've talked about that all this while. The user. Okay, it doesn't mean you spend 5 lakhs and 10 lakhs on doing a market research. As an entrepreneur, let me take the Thai Academy. What did I do? I am new to the Thai system 2 years back. I spoke to several stakeholders. I spoke to my board, okay, and they said it's a great idea because they all wanted to get done. I put a lot of mentors, about top 10 mentors in Thai Mumbai, who all wanted to know what it was. They said it's a great idea. We spoke to 50 entrepreneurs. We sent out a Google form. We got responses from people, and what are the pain points? Only three pain points they had, on basically all related to sales, saying that they can't get the sale, the productivity is bad, the people come and go, they can't get good salespeople, common problems. So we got that, and then we said, okay, let's make a product, a Thai Academy, which is the first batch in November, and now we are pivoting it because of the current situation also, because there's a lot of demand for that. So we did a survey. You need to have some bit of the pulse of the user. So you need to do a survey. Yeah. Next one.
And so is the sales process going to be different for different products, or like what are the underlying elements
Yeah.
which are
So
common for all those?
yeah, basically, gas is for any product, any solution. Some people say, no, sir, I'm in the cement industry, so cement is different. Somebody, I'm chocolate industry, some ice cream industry, somebody is IT service. It doesn't make a difference. The process I've defined, value proposition, is the same. Absolutely no difference. And when we do the master class, you will get that reinforced again.
So, and we are left with only one question, which talks about how is it going to be post-COVID, and what are
Okay.
some tips?
Okay. So basically, let me hint at that. See, customers, the economy will limp back to normalcy eventually. Let's fast forward to 2023 now. Okay, straight away 3 years. It's going to be back to normal. But what will happen is that a lot of the customers are quite happy now to talk to salespeople and do deals on online or inside sales. Customer needs to be the same. The sales as a science, or sales management as a science, has not changed for 500 years actually, and that is what a science is. A science never changes. It's the same. You may have other additions, CRM may come in, you may have other things, but the science has never changed. So nothing will change as far as this is concerned. This is still remain the same only. You still need to have a user, satisfied user, even in the 23rd century, to sell your product. It has to, because everybody is the same boat. Today, if you are calling remotely to a customer, so is everybody else. So it's all the same. It's all relative. So we will touch at the end again. The hint is it will not change. It will be the same. So let's move on now. Okay. Let me just move on with the next, sales partner. So what is the objective of sales partner management? Is to create a sustainable network which can help you to achieve your goals, because the partner is an extension of the company. So some of you may not be fully in with this because you don't require partner. You're direct to customer. Okay. Some people may be looking at it long term. Some people actually have partners. Partners are nothing but an extended arm of your company who help you achieve your objectives. How to make them? So basically, this says how to make the partner a part of your family so that they do the work you want them to do. In short, put it very simply. So there are 7 processes, starting with how they're selected, how they're compensated, how they're appointed, inducted, how to set their targets so that they are working for you. Because what is your objective? You're the company and that's the partner. The partner should work beyond the brief and do more than what you're paying him for, correct? That's ultimately the objective you have. How do you make that happen? It won't happen by just by going and sitting with him. He's appointed, but he has to give his heart and soul to the business to make it work. So this takes care of all of that: target setting, performance evaluation, whether you're doing correct job or not, correcting him, helping him to achieve his targets, then reward recognition process, how do you do it, and ultimately, if it doesn't work out, how to get a replacement. So these 7 processes are very important, and they take you through the science of partner management. And those of you who have been in this partner before, you understand, you'll immediately identify, oh, this was I appointed this guy and finally I had to terminate the partner and he bad mouthed in the market. It's a very sad situation. And so many companies start with startups start and then you appoint bad distributors and they fire distributors arbitrarily, and then the distributors bad mouth them. So it makes life very difficult for themselves. They're very smart about it. The partner is not a company guy. He is somebody outsourced. Okay, but he needs to be taken care of. Okay, and you have to keep an eye on them. So this takes care of that. Again, we'll get into details in the masterclass. But what are the pitfalls which happen here? So so there are 7 of them. So we'll come to each 7 pitfalls. The first pitfall could be selection, could be that you're not very clear what the role of the partner. Is he just a commission agent or he has to keep stock and sell? Is his area very clear? This itself is not very clear many times. And compensation, it has to be a win-win for both company and the partner, because the brand is yours. It's not his brand or their brand. Tomorrow you may decide, for whatever reason, you may say non-performing, go to somebody else. So the partner has to feel that he's getting a good deal, and in which if he's going to invest in stock like FMCG distributor, ROI becomes very important. They want at least 2% per month. They want 24-30% they want per annum. So sometimes when you're not doing that benchmarking properly, so I won't get into detail, but suppose you just fix the arbitrary and he agrees, it may be below the industry norms, and after some time we catch up with you. So again, you have a pitfall there. You don't do execution properly. So this is this is how it works. In induction, the pitfall is you're not actually making aware of what a company's plans are, vision, what do you want to do. So he's not with you. And then target setting, you just set targets, because you want to dump targets on him, or dump stock. He's a customer, and you have to give him some customer service. Then performance review, you don't review the performance, or very sporadic. You've got to be at it. It all depends on the passion you bring to the partner. Rewards recognition, R&R. The worst case happens is always you promise something, you don't give. And that sets a bad precedent, any bad mouth in the market, and tomorrow I'm going to go and appoint any new sales partner, they don't come. And termination, eventually you have to terminate. There are always 2 sides to the story. If you don't do it correctly and smoothly, and if you don't do all of this before and then suddenly terminate somebody, then you build a bad market reputation. So it's very important that you don't mess it up. Fundamentally, the process will ensure that you make him part of the family. The company works for you as an extended arm, and they go beyond the brief. This is what it does. Sales team management. Now, I want to make a statement here. No matter what business you're in, cement or your IT services, whatever you are, or what you're going to get into, or for the MBA students looking to come into this kind of thing, what do you take up? Here is something for you to think over. No matter what product you're selling, ultimately, if you're an entrepreneur, you're in the people's business. That's it. Simple. It is the people which are going to make a difference, nothing else. So how you recruit, manage, motivate the sales talent is the most crucial, so that they work for you, they don't leave you, they're loyal to you, and they sing your praises, and they get more people to come to you. So the sales team management process applies to all companies, 1-man show, 2-man show, 100-man show, apply everybody. And this is going to set the tone for you in terms of how you manage them. So, okay, there is an HR department. A lot of this work falls under HR. Now, if you're a small company, you don't have HR department, you should go to some mentors or people where you can outsource this, because things like say role mapping. So there are 2 ways to do it. The formal way, there's a complete which I'll show you in the sales workshop. There's a structure, there's a form, but ultimately, if you understand the basic philosophy of this, is to make the sales team part of your company, and just like the partner we talked about, make them go beyond make them feel at home. So first and foremost, go to describe job description. For that, you need what are the competencies they require. So many times, if you can't do a detailed working, at least write down in a piece of paper, keep it with you. As you're recruiting a salesperson today, what he or she is supposed to do, exactly what they're supposed to do. Write down qualification. What do you want? What are the jobs he or she supposed to do? Keep it with you. So the second process is how do you source people? How do you induct them? Then once they come in, how do you manage the performance? Then how do you reward them? So there is performance management, number 3, and performance development in number 5. So performance management is setting the KRAs, setting the appraisals, rewarding them. Then the development means training, like having a sales training program, sales academy you can have for a longer benefit. We'll get into all of this in the master class. How do you develop the performance so that they improve, the productivity improves more and more? An unfortunate case where somebody doesn't live up to expectations, how do you terminate, how do you get a replacement? It's a process there. So 6 processes on that. And what are the pitfalls here? So in role mapping, normally a lot of companies don't have JDs. I don't mean like a 10-page JD in a system. What I mean is even taking this, again, example of my notebook. Just write down here, okay, if I'm taking a salesperson, what are the 6 things they're supposed to do? Okay? Take a copy, give it to the person, saying this is what you do in a startup mode. It's important to set the intent right. This is the whole point of this GASP. GASP is an idea. GASP is a process, of course. You have to live GASP. You got to live that philosophy. So role mapping, whether it is a specialist or multitasker, especially in startups, require a bit of a multitask person. Okay. In team sourcing, the biggest issue is the cultural misfit. You have a certain culture as a founder, an entrepreneur, and you get somebody else who's not a thing, or a market image. You may have done something, some problem in the market, and you may have been sacked by the other company. You're not getting the proper references. You take people in, making snap decisions, not knowing how to interview, not inducted well. They don't know the process. They don't know the company processes, and the founder has to lead from the front. You may have a person to recruit people in, but the founder has to lead from the front. If you don't lead from the front, this will not work. In performance management, SMART KRA. SMART is specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, time bound. Essentially, your objective has to be time bound, SMART, specific. You can't say achieve sales target. You have to say achieve X number of volume or value from so many customers by so much time. That's a kind of a SMART target, because that's a standard you can measure against. So if you don't have that, then you don't have a KRA actually. So again, there's execution pitfall. Maybe you don't do any review, or if you're doing review, reward recognition, you're playing favorites, targets are too high, nobody's getting incentives. Again, it doesn't work. And again, performance development, there is something called PSWC square. This is basically what I'm saying here is sales performance. So there's sales capability. So performance is equal to willingness into conviction into capability. So before capability of that spin selling and all that, is the salesperson willing to work for you? Is the salesperson convinced that your solution that he or she is selling is actually very good? Or is there a problem there? Then you have a problem in your house instead of in the customer. And that is why sometimes to the person who asked me the question, you have to check whether you're convinced about the solution and the DUP yourself. Otherwise, you can't convince the other person. So there are ways to measure this with salespeople. Not having training programs and getting impatient on the performance development result. It takes time. People take time to change. If I have a training program today, 2 days, you can't change overnight. It takes time and it has to be sustained. And on processes, violations on termination is sometimes, you have people, sales guys, playing funny with money, stealing money or, doing some fraud kind of thing. You should never tolerate financial irregularities. You can tolerate incompetence up to a certain extent, but never financial irregularities. But whenever you terminate somebody, you have to follow a due process. Otherwise, these days, there are sites like Glassdoor where people can go and write about a company. New employees will come and look at that. That's the problem. And delaying a full and final of anybody who leaves is a bad sign, because it's just a bad example. So these processes ensure that you don't have these pitfalls. Sales team management processes. What are those? These are the 6 processes. So the process, again, there's a process objective for each of them. There's a process, there are some questions we ask internally. There's a process check, there's a process toolkit, process violations, and tips. So there's a 5 point for each of the processes, which is really part of the masterclass we take up. And the last is operations management. How are we doing for time? Okay, we are half an hour. So operation management basically develops a performance culture and ties in all the previous processes to deliver operations as per industry benchmark while growing your customer and product base in line with business priorities. So operation management processes ensure that the other processes are handled well, so that you're getting continuous growth and you're doing your execution correctly. This is the final check of the process. And there are 8 sub processes here, 8. So the first is actually lean canvas plan, and this again, Anudeep, is something that we should look at. Lean canvas planning, which comes actually as part of design thinking. Lean canvas plan is nothing but putting your plan into 9 boxes like this. Okay, it's a way of summarizing your plan, and it's a very great way. It's basically it's also called a business canvas plan in some cases. Basically, it's comes from the Silicon Valley, and the Thai network calls it Lean Canvas, and it summarizes your entire plan. So it has got the problem, solution, everything there. So if you're doing, it summarizes the priorities. It's like an annual operating plan. Is this something that
Yeah, actually, we did this in our idea validation workshop and
we did?
jumpstarting your startup workshop last year.
Okay.
So once, if we have new members interested, again,
So
we will.
we have to lean canvas plan. You prepare various versions. So for the Thai Academy also, I prepared a lean canvas plan for the board to show them what actually I'm talking about academy. Now I'm going to revise that plan because it's a version 1, version 2, as as we are
Sure.
going through the process. So that's what has happened.
Yeah.
So it starts with that. Then it starts with setting the benchmarks. How to set the benchmarks for a sales operation? Because remember I said sales execution fails because you don't have the right benchmarks also. How to set that? What are the CRM you should use? What are the indicators you have to use? How to do the sales review? 5 and 6 are very important. Actually, very logical. Customer base expansion and new product launch. So actually, these are really day-to-day work of salespeople. If you look like it's like telling accounts guy, you have to go and actually check the account books every day or check the tally. It's part and parcel of your life. But what happens is that in sales, when you are running operations, you are chasing current business so much. The new business as new customers and new products, you are not really focused on. So we have to put a separate process for sales in this GASP to make sure it's covered. How to add new customers and how to launch new products. This is something which is very important and part of this. So in operation management, you also got on-the-job training. Remember, in the sales team management, we had sales training. So that is what I'm doing now, sales training. But in the job, on the job, people have to do field supervision and feedback and training. If that is not done, the classroom training will go for a waste. This is what the on-the-job training does. The 30th process is sales execution sustenance. That means how to ensure that all the other 29 processes are kept on track and are of the highest quality. The final quality check comes on the 30th process. So there I have some interesting thing for you to think over, which I'll come to just after finish this pitfall. So what are the pitfalls which happen? Lean canvas plan is not having a plan or not doing it properly. On the sales benchmarking is that you don't know what are the industry standards. You just put a standard based on what salespeople say. That's not the benchmarking. There should be some stretch targets. Stretch targets means something little beyond what your normal thing is, but incentivize that so that people reach that, they are rewarded. That's the way we do it. On the CRM MIS, basically you learn that there are some 8 sales stages in any sales process. If this is not captured in CRM, for example, if you're buying, all CRMs are good. There are a lot of CRMs in the market. I'll not talk about a particular CRM, but if you're taking a free version of a CRM today, they will not have all the requirements that I am talking about. They may not have all the stages. They may not have the lagging indicators. There are leading indicators. There are lagging indicators because they're free. If you want to do a lot of this, you need to buy and subscribe to the CRM. So not having the right CRM tell you the right numbers is a problem. Sales review, very simple, not having the data and not reviewing them with the sales team. Accounts team, if you don't review also, because they follow a process by default, things don't go wrong. It can go wrong, but by and large, it's not always on track. But in sales, it doesn't happen that way. You have to always do the review. And while reviewing it, review the leading indicators, not just the total number. For the leading indicators come from the MIS. For that, you need to have the MIS in place. So only then review. That's why it follows a process: CRM, MIS, and then sales review. Then customer base expansion and new product launch. The pitfalls come is that you don't take it up as a core activity. So now what's happening is, now, for example, in the COVID situation, a lot of companies I talk to have the time to sit back and say, oh, this customer actually I should not have acquired because it's very expensive to service, or they're not paying in time, whatever. So the right customer selection is very important. And now people are looking at that, or looking at people are now also launching new products because they find that they have time to talk to some of the users, get feedback, change product. So all this happening now in a accelerated way. But actually, this should be part and parcel of a normal existence. Then the question that is coming earlier about in COVID times, what happens? Nothing will happen. If you're connected to a user, the way I have described it so far, not just hi, hello, but if you really know your user, let's say today you have a CRM and you have been made the CRM, it's being used by a company, and they give you business. Today, the user of that CRM, again, supply chain guy or a sales guy, is probably sitting at home. Now, if you have already contacted them in the past, today you can pick up the phone, speak to him, and he has all the time to talk about it. And this is what some of the entrepreneurs I know who are doing a good job are doing today. They're talking to the users and getting so much of feedback which they never got in the past, that COVID, no COVID, they are won the game. But that is because they have established a relationship with user from the beginning, because of this mindset that of gas. They are not calling it gas, but the way they operate is as per the gas process. So if you don't have this earlier, then you can get it now, but keep it with you is what this process says. Then on the job training, then that very simple. Sales execution sustenance. See, there are 3 points here. One is that the founder, the owner, has to lead by example. Second is you need hard facts and data, and I'll talk about it in just half a second. And you have to be obsessed with sales fundamentals. So the last two, just focus on this, because this nobody will tell you. I'm the only guy talking about, because it's a core to sales execution. So to achieve sustained results, so we learned about gas, all the processes, but to achieve the sustenance, you will need an obsession. You need to obsession. అంటే తెలుగులో మనకి పిచ్చిగా ఉండాలి దాని మీద. You're going to be really mad after it. Obsession. That you want to achieve that execution excellence has to be obsession with you. So what we call it is a brutal obsession with sales fundamentals. BOSF. This term is used in P&G when they want to drive. It's part and parcel of their culture. And like all other companies, good companies which do well, there is a brutal obsession with sales fundamentals. So all of the gasp and looking at it day to day, looking at the standards, the process, performance, this is sales fundamentals. There's obsession with that. Every single member is going to be obsessed saying, I have to do that. Only then you can achieve it. So what I do is, I have some very simple to drive this in sales. You don't have to say for accounts guys, brutal obsession with accounting fundamentals. You don't have to say for the manufacturing guy, a brutal obsession with manufacturing fundamentals. Why? because by definition, by law, God has given them, whoever has given them, it's a process driven. If you have to make a product in a manufacturing, in a press or in a chemical plant, there's only one way you can do it. From here to here, the process is given. In accounting, to make a P&L, you have to make, there's a process. But in sales, there are 10 different ways to do it, depending on who's looking at it, unless you follow GASP. So we have a sales oath. What does it say? Only in the word of God do I trust. Everybody else in sales has to produce hard facts and data. Why is this? Because only in sales will people come and tell you, sir, my sale is low because price of the company is high. Other person is selling more. Nobody quantifies the feedback they give it to you. And if you as the owner accept that feedback, it's a violation of the GASP oath, sales oath, which says that no, when you say it is more or less, give me actual number, more by how much percentage, compared to what, all of this. So good sales organizations who are brutal with the sales fundamentals don't accept nonsensical statements and of comparison by anybody. They want hard facts and data. And this was told to me many years back by some very senior mentor with whom I trust, and I've used it all the time. Every sales meeting I put this up. Recently, I mean about 3-4 years back, I was very surprised to, and pleasantly surprised to see that the grand young man of the IT industry, Mr. Narayan Murthy, whom I'm sure everybody knows, Infosys, he has a similar dictum for his board members. With what it says: in God we trust. Everybody else brings data to the table, and this is to the board members, not salespeople. Now, board members at that level, it sets you thinking. So what it means is that given a chance, all of us, and you just reflect on yourself, when you're given feedback many times, it's very generic feedback, and you have got away with it. So even a board member is not immune to that apparently on this. So when a chairman is discussing on the board, he will say, get me. The board member cannot say, oh, I think your company is not doing well. He has to say, okay, compared to what, against what, blah, blah, blah. So a person like him is saying this, and I've got something else, a message from him at the end, which I show all entrepreneurs, which I'll show in our next 2-3 minutes. So please bear this in mind, that BOSF, brutal obsessive sales fundamentals, and hard facts and data. These two will see you through the entire process. Even if you don't follow any other process, you just follow this. This itself will give you 30% better results. So GASP basically is the 30 processes. So how to implement it? So first and foremost, in the master class, we'll get into details, and you will get all the, when you attend the master class, as part of the takeaways, you get all the processes. You should audit your own company. So somebody will say, sir, I'm very small company. I don't understand part. I have only one person. No problem. At least you have the idea in your mind that all this will come in force today, if not tomorrow, maybe in 2025, not in 2020. But when the customer is with you, have you done your user research? Have you talked to the user? Do you have a benefit which is different from a user's? Blah, 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 blah. All of that you have to first take care. Do that as an audit. Make changes, pilot that. And then you have to go for the implementation. So what we do in GASP is we do the audit and pilot with people, and then we do a build, operate, transfer, where we implement, so we do a pilot implementation, show the result everybody. Because sales, this is for sales. Sales guys are herd mentality. They see a success somewhere, all people will follow that. So we make sure we take a case and we make it successful, and then show everybody else, so people know, okay, it's working very well, and then we implement it across the rest of the system. So this is how it works. GASP works on this basis. And if you live GASP, if you follow GASP, then your journey as an entrepreneur will be successful, because you're coming with the intention to, you have the capacity and willingness to take the risk, which is what this is showing. The science is going to come with this, and that is what we are trying to tell you right now. Okay, there is one very quick checklist. I can send this off to Anudeep also. That many people ask, okay, I'm a young startup, I am to launch. What is the checklist? I will not go through this in detail, just briefly run through it. So first, you have a plan, lean canvas plan or a business plan. Identify the process owner, because you're going to make the processes and follow them. Who's the process owner? One of the founders. Find the target market size. What are the customer segments? Competition, do the value proposition, pricing, what is the route to market? Find out a differentiable USP or DUVP. So I have not covered what is called minimum viable product. So when you do the benefits, you may have several benefits that you want to bring to the table, but you have a minimum viable product. So you have something which is very core, which is different from competition. You want to try with that. So launch your solution with that initially to pivot it. Do the research and then keep adding or changing it. This so minimum MVP is called minimum viable product. That's the logic of that, and that in the value proposition and perhaps in your earlier sessions you've done it. Look at the pricing, cost, gross margins. Prepare a launch plan for 3 months. Value plan, how many customers. Every business has got two components: number of customers and average value per customer. That's all. Your sales come from customer into average value per customer. The mobile guys call it ARPU, average realization per user. So basic gas funda is increase the number of customers, increase the average value. This is the fundamental direction which you're driving it. Prepare a launch plan. Sales team, what you want to recruit, get them trained, make the coverage norms, make the metrics, what to be monitored, do manual MIS, WhatsApp formats, how to qualify a lead so that you don't chase all the leads you have. What is the basic process of pitching? Recruit a trade partner, how to activate the user, admin process, launch the product, user connect. MOT is called moment of truth. That is, whenever the user using the product, what is the experience of the product? That is what you have to find out. Reviews and review 3 months, finalize the plan for next 9 months. So essentially, there are 23 steps which are quite logical, and this is how you are supposed to do it. But for doing this, a lot of these processes you have to understand and make sure. But even if you don't know the process details, just following these steps and the ticking of the boxes itself is going to be good enough. So now we come to the end of this session, and before I end, I want to show you Mr. Narayan Murthy again. See, Mr. Narayan Murthy is a doyen of the IT industry. Wherever he goes, and these days he goes to a lot of institutions. Wherever he goes, one question he gets always asked is, "Sir, how do you make a small company into a big company?" Because people look at Infosys and say, "Oh, such a big, great company, so I want to go there." So this question gets asked by everybody. So he has replied it several times. I've done one of the last year at IIT Kanpur. This question was asked. So there's a video on that which I picked up for you guys. So let's take a look at what he says and see how that translates to what we have just talked about in GASP. Here it is. Sorry. Yeah.
I have a question. What were the hurdles that you faced while establishing Infosys way back in 1981 from a startup to a big corporation? And what are the key factors that someone nowadays in this 21st century should see while starting a startup in order to make it a big corporation?
Well, I think as I told some other group yesterday, first, your idea must have a differentiated business value proposition to the market better than all your competitors. That's most important. Unless you are creating a discontinuity in the marketplace, like Uber or Microsoft, etc., etc. But that's rare. But most of us, when we found a company, we have to ensure that our differentiated business value proposition is better than any competing product. Second, you must bring together a team that has mutually exclusive but collectively exhaustive set of skills, expertise, and experience. Third, the team must have an enduring value system. Uh, Fourth, money will automatically follow. Money is not a big deal. Fifth, you have to compare yourself with the world's best in every dimension of your operation at all points of time. At least that should be your aspiration. Whether it is in finance, whether it is in human resources, whether it is in infrastructure, technological infrastructure, physical infrastructure, etc., etc. In other words, your aspiration must be to compare yourself with the global best. And that may be that the global best may be so far away from you, but as long as your face is towards that global best, as long as you're moving fast to the extent that you can towards that global best, then you will automatically become better and better and better day by day, and that gap will start reducing. I think if you know, if you have these things, if you follow some of these principles, then I do believe it becomes a little bit less difficult to reach the top than otherwise. That's not still. It does not mean that you will 100% reach the top, because there are so many imponderables that happen on the way. But by and large, you are enhancing the probability of success by following some of these principles.
So that basically, if you look at what he said, what is the first point he said? He said you should have a unique proposition differentiated from competition, which is nothing but DUVP. So even somebody who started a business so many years back is still talking the same thing. So fundamentally, he talked of that. He talked of the team, talked of the culture, and he also what did he say? Standards. Keep yourself perform benchmark. So basically, this is what GASP is all about. It's just nothing but what you should be doing to make a good company. And I will recommend that we do this master class, we get into detail. But one thing, GASP is theory is 10%. 90% is putting that into practice, because you can learn everything. You will still definitely, just by listening and going through the processes, you will get a 10-15% jump, because there are some good practices there. But you need to implement that. You need to put it into practice, understand, internalize it, live it, so that the science becomes an art. So with this, I will stop sharing the screen, and let me just go back to the, sorry.
So we have some more questions after previous break.
Yeah.
So the question is, we have DUVP but limited features, but our competitors are providing more features. Then how to market our product?
Sorry, if we have DUVP, but what?
Yeah, but limited features. So they have a DUVP, but their competitors have more number of features.
So this itself is confusing, because DUVP doesn't look at features. He will look at the benefits. So I think what the gentleman has to do, the person has to do, is go back to the drawing board and list down what are the real benefits that he's bringing to the table versus competition. And you don't have to take somebody head on. So if you're going to go to a existing competitor, you got to find out how to go around that person, that competitor, and not go head on and then cry baby. So no, I cannot do. That is not the smart way of burning your money and anybody else's money. Because if you go with that to a VC, he will say that what is your difference between you and them? So I would strongly, my sense is that you got a feature which is similar to what they're giving, because you looked at something and maybe copied it, either consciously, subconsciously. Go back to the drawing board and make it different, and then you will find your way through.
So, and I think they need to also figure out, when you're deciding between a vitamin and an antibiotic.
Yeah.
The
That is
minimum
the
requirement.
correct genuine requirement, whatever. So this is what, see, now today I'm guaranteeing you the healthcare sector people are going to jump in with a lot of apps. So everybody is saying that we have to measure health, we are going to so if you're going to do that, just think for 1 minute, what does the consumer really want? Talk to your friends. You don't have to invest 10 lakhs in it. Talk to your friends, understand what their fears are. Okay. And this could be another entrepreneur only. No, but talk to the entrepreneur as a customer, as a user, not as a fellow entrepreneur, and find out what they need and try to build around it. That's very simple. Yeah.
And the next question is how to use digital platform to market product or service in a better way, and which platform will help more in Telugu states?
So nothing like Telugu, non-Telugu states. Let's get out of this system. There's nothing like this, guys. There is Andhra specialty in Ledikada. Okay. The basically you have to understand very simply. So I'm not doing a digital marketing exercise, but digital marketing important to get the leads. And I do think that Anudeep, if you've not done it, a digital marketing kind of masterclass is a must. There are 10 top 10 methods to get leads into any business. And incidentally, surprisingly for everybody, the first one is not email. Okay. The last one is email. There are things, if you look at the good list, it has got things like videos. See, you have to build a story about your company, about the service you're offering, and make yourself known in the market for XYZ benefit you're providing. You got to be seen as a thought leader in some way. Okay, I'm not talking about the Narayana Murthy's of the world. I'm talking about at your levels. So this comes from. So if the lead is coming walking into you to ask you something, you are in a much stronger position to get that lead and make it an opportunity rather than you go and hunt that person on the market. As a general rule, how to make people come now? Okay, that basically depends upon there are a lot of lead marketing companies who get you leads, etc. But in our workshop we'll get more detail of that. The hint is you need to build an image for your company and for yourself, because it is with that you'll attract leads not only from customers, even from employees who want to work with you. So we'll cover that in somebody, but that's really the subject of a digital marketing class, more or less.
So, yeah. And the next question is also about leads. What is the best way to drive client for the leads? And best way to get leads?
Best way is assuming that you've got a DUVP, assuming that everything else is correct. You got to have a target market identified very clearly first. Don't waste time. And if you go to exhibition, you get 1,000 names. You can't chase all 1,000. So you got to very clarify. You got to qualify it. It's called firmographic data. How you qualify a lead. After that, if you want to basically get more leads, you got to do outbound marketing. And outbound marketing, I can get you 10 people who will say I'll get you leads. But the real good way to do it is build an image for yourself, which comes with time, a LinkedIn profile, with work on it, so that people understand that this company is worth doing business with. And you don't talk of any. I get many people on LinkedIn. Immediately next day they ask me for, sir, can we sell this service to you? That is not the way. You need to build a image in a kind of environment where we are able to talk to that person. So this comes with a long process, and I will cover this in the masterclass. There are 10 ways to do it.
So how does the process change when you are selling a single-use product like mock interviews?
Like, sorry?
Like mock interviews. So they are a solution providing service to the people who want to prepare for interviews.
Okay. It doesn't change at all. I mean, it's the same thing. It's the same boring stuff. Who's the user? Your people who are going to be using this service, right? So what do people want in interviews? Okay, what aspects are interviewers trying to cover in that? So it's the same. We follow the process is the same. So the people person-based service, IT-based service, it's all the same. Trust me. If you when you're it's the You have to become a process specialist, not a product specialist. Okay. So become a process specialist. You just apply this today concept to your go back home, write down your features, benefits. First of all, if anybody talks anything else, I want to first see a sheet of features and benefits, one page, one other page, competitor one, features, benefits, page number two. Only with this I will talk. I want hard facts and data in front of me, as I mentioned, before you can give any advice. So, I'm just making the point that you basically do it yourself, and then you'll get to understand that it applies the same way. There's no difference.
So those are the questions, and there is a request asking if they can get the presentation and the recording of the webinar.
Yeah. So recording, I think you're doing right. You can.
Yeah.
And I'll send you the PDF file. You can circulate that.
Sure.
Not a problem. They
Sure.
can do that. But really, what I would like to leave your thought with, that this is a process. So maybe people came to this thinking that there's a eureka moment on execution. No, it's not. The eureka moment is, if you understand that execution is a process. These are the elements to be formed. It takes time and experience to master that. Okay, after 37 years, if I talk about it, it may seem like an art to you. But as I mentioned, when the science is ingrained, it's an art. If I have to do a gas audit at your company, I don't require the 30 process checklist with me. It's all in my mind. I'm already looking at hundreds of things. Just like a difference between a fresh CA who's doing audit and a senior accountant who's been there for 20 years. When they both go to a client, the fresh flow requires a list of things he has to check 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 what he has learned. The senior guys start looking at the basic, the fundamental indicators. So essentially, if you come to that point where you have that, then you're in the flow, in the zone. So you have to do that. Only then you can get your execution right, because execution is the process which gives you the result if you follow the process. So the master class is very important for you people to understand that whatever you're going to be spending on that, think of it like this. Even if you spend 1,000, 2,000, whatever the thing, you will save 2 crores, 20 lakhs, whatever you want, 100 times over in your journey across. Because if you have the wrong product, you have the wrong pricing, and you have a wrong team, imagine the loss you can get by executing that on that basis and trying to get money. And if you get money also, whether you're going to deliver on that. So all of this, one answer. Gas to be 10% is the classroom training, 90% is on the job by you guys.
Sure, maybe I could see that there could be some kind of an information overload, because we tried to cover most of the things in 2 hours. But I see the need for a detailed workshop. Maybe
Sure.
I'll interact with the audience and get back
Sure.
on the
Sure.
master
I'm
class.
available.
So,
I'm
yeah,
available.
so we have just 2 more questions.
Yeah.
So how to attract customer in this situation, especially to generate fresh leads and mainly targeting startup for your company?
I'm sorry, tell me the question again.
How to attract customers in this situation, especially to generate fresh leads and mainly targeting startups?
In this situation means this COVID.
Oh,
Well, I think, you have to.
so the other question is also related. How are the customer preferences going to change after post the pandemic?
That is, I'm not a crystal ball gazer. We have to see. I mean, there are many hypotheses how they will change. People still have to eat and drink. Industries still have to run. The industries which are managing still have the same requirement for consumables, whatever. The process of reaching out to them, that could very well change. What we say inside sales. Inside sale is not a call center. That is a crude way of describing it. Inside sale is any sale done remotely. This basically means what we are doing today is all inside sales. So every salesperson has an element of inside sales from day one. That percentage is going to go up more. Like like it's there in Europe and US. When they're sitting across east to west coast, people are talking on, even earlier on Zoom, whatever, or companies selling software or services to US and to UK, Europe. This is what you do. So this increasing will happen within India, between Bombay, Delhi, and even within the city. This is one way it will happen. You got to track your customer user process. The process is very clearly defined. The process of keeping on top of the customer in terms of the new product launch and customer coverage is described. And boringly and predictably, where did it start? With the user again. So if you are user centric, then essentially you are covered for all the processes. Okay, you don't have to. There is no emergency in your end, or if something is happening there, you get to know it at the beforehand and not as a afterthought.
So those are the questions that we have, and thanks for that. I mean, it isn't completely exhaustive, but you did take us through all the fundamentals
Yes,
and the process. And
whatever is possible. I'm happy to come back again and do that whenever you guys want. Huh? Nagar,
sure.
I feel nice because AP is at core to my heart, and I got a chance to talk about it. So I'm very glad. Thank you, Anidhi, and
Thank you.
thank you everybody there. And I really enjoyed this session, and I look forward to something in the near future.
Sure. Thank you
Okay.
so much.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.